We've got another day of Broncos OTAs to recap, along with some Courtland Sutton updates. But before we get to all that stuff, I do want to get your thoughts down below in the comment section. Who was the Broncos quarterback when you first became a fan? Was it Jake the Snake, Jay Cutler, Peyton Manning, John Elway? Let me know down below while the intro video rolls. The final week of Broncos organized team activities is upon us, and the Broncos, Denver media, I should say, had their final viewing of the Broncos OTA. So we're going to talk about what we saw, what we learned from it. Sean Payton spoke to the media, talked about a handful of subjects, including Courtland Sutton. So a lot to get to on today's video. But let's start with Courtland Sutton, and then we'll get to the quarterbacks because I know that's what everyone is looking for. Courtland Sutton did, of course, come up in Sean Payton's press conference today. Overall, Payton sounded very confident and very assuring that this was a no big deal and this would get resolved soon, as Sutton is still not at organized team activities. It's completely voluntary. But you've got mandatory minicamp coming around next week, and Sean Payton's kind of overall message was he expects Sutton to be there. He thinks he'll be there. He wouldn't say anything definitive, but the overall language was optimistic, I would say, surrounding Sutton joining the team for mandatory minicamp. But we did see two other wide receivers skip their mandatory minicamps beginning this week. CeeDee Lamb for the Dallas Cowboys and Brandon Ayuk for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, these two are not in the same tier as Courtland Sutton, right? They are looking to become top 5 highest paid wide receivers in football. Courtland Sutton, on the other hand, he's looking to jump from like $13.6 million in cash for this upcoming season to the $15 million range, according to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. Sutton also only has $2 million guaranteed remaining on his deal, which has 2 years left on it. So it's not in the same tier as Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb, but it's definitely something to watch for because minicamp is mandatory, and if you are not there, you will get fined. Now, a lot of times when players have contract disputes and they don't show up to minicamp or training camp, once that contract dispute is resolved, the teams will usually just wipe away all the fines, right? They're not going to fine a guy they just gave a 4-year, $120 million contract to. They usually will forgive those fines. But for Sutton, I'm not quite sure if that's going to be the exact scenario here because he's looking for a marginal increase in pay, and Denver appears to be pretty dug in, at least from what we can kind of gather, because how long this holdout's a strong word, but absence has been from the team. So that's the latest on Courtland Sutton. Sean Payton sounding cautiously, I'll say optimistic, that Sutton will be in attendance for mandatory minicamp June 11th through the 13th. Now make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you stay in the loop on all things Courtland Sutton, Broncos news and rumors. We are less than 30 subscribers away from 22,300. So chipping away, baby, all the way to the Michael Jordan 23K. Now let's talk about the quarterbacks for a little bit. We got another look at Bo Nix along with Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson. And the overall impression I had from Bo Nix today at OTAs was he looked like a rookie quarterback. I mean, there's going to be good moments and there's going to be some less than perfect moments, but all things considered, Bo Nix, I would say, is maybe looking better or ahead of schedule. I say that with some level of caution than your average rookie quarterback. And I think that's kind of expected for a guy that broke the FBS record for most amount of starts by a quarterback in college football. Now, the media did ask Sean Payton if they see any similarities between Bo Nix and a young Drew Brees on or off the field, and Payton took his time answering the question, and he talked about a similarity that he sees between the two of them mentally. Now, he never really talked about similarities between them on the field, and to be honest with you, I think it's time that we stop trying to compare, or at least just shove this narrative down everyone's throats that Bo Nix and Drew Brees are so similar, and what Sean Payton did with Drew Brees, he can replicate with Bo Nix. They're not that similar. Like, sure, there are some similarities, but, I mean, Bo Nix, for starters, just from a, hey, put them right next to one another, is way bigger than Drew Brees. So that's going to entail some different skill sets and some different strengths and weaknesses. So, no, I think from your physical makeup standpoint, Bo Nix is like 6'2". Drew Brees is not even 6 foot. So, No, they're not that similar in that department. Do they have similarities in terms of what they are good at on the field? Yeah, Drew Brees, a very accurate quarterback. Bo Nix last year, the most accurate quarterback in college football. So you can check that box. Do they have incredible arm strength? They're not known for having a cannon of an arm like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes. So sure, they're a little similar there, but honestly, I think we just need to stop trying to force this narrative that, oh, there is a couple of similarities between the two. That means Bo Nix is going to be the next Drew Brees because Sean Payton is his head coach. Let me ask you this question. If Bo Nix was the quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders, would you say the Raiders have the next Drew Brees? No. But because Sean Payton's the coach, all of a sudden that means Bo Nix is just going to morph into Drew Brees? They're different people. Stop trying to make them the same, okay? That's my TED Talk. Jarrett Stidham, in my eyes, still the quarterback one at the moment. But, of course, this quarterback competition, it's going to go through August. I think it's not going to get resolved until the final preseason game. My gut tells me that Sean Payton will want to announce the starting quarterback, at least inside the locker room and the team, for that third final preseason game so that they can do a bit of a dress rehearsal, thank you, and not have it be a three-man rotation all three preseason games. Now, I could also see Sean Payton wanting to keep his cards close to his chest and not let the Seahawks know which quarterback to prepare for week one. So he may not publicly come out and say it for a while, but my guess is internally they'll have a good idea or a definitive idea as their starting quarterback or who their starting quarterback is for preseason week 3. Zach Wilson was the starting quarterback today at OTAs as the Broncos continue rotating all three QBs with the first-team offense. And it just so happened that the first time the media saw the offense, it was Jarrett Stidham with the first-team offense. The second time, it was Bo Nix, the first-team offense. And now the third and final time at OTAs, it is Zach Wilson. And the overall takeaway from Zach Wilson as QB1 today was not good. Some struggles, taking on fake sacks. You can't actually sack the quarterback, but if pads were on, it would have been a sack. He just threw up a duck to P.J. Locke in the middle of the defense, who, by the way, is having a really strong offseason in spring, so very encouraging to see after the Justin Simmons departure. But Zach Wilson is definitely looking like a QB3 on this team. Now, before we get to the rest of today's show, because I got plenty more to share with you all, I do want to tell everyone about our wonderful sponsor today, which is Prize Picks. With Prize Picks, you could turn $10 into $1,000 in a single game watching your favorite sports this summer. You can make a Prize Picks lineup in as little as 60 seconds. You just need to pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you are locked in. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about here. I'm taking the more on Seth Lugo and his strikeouts out for this upcoming matchup. It's Taco Tuesday, so there's always going to be great deals on Prize Picks. Also like the more on Jason Tatum, a little bit of a heat check here at 0.5 points. That one seems like a little bit of a gimme. And then I like the more on Connor McDavid against the Panthers at 3.5 shots on goal. So if you like my selections, feel free to download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS for a first-time deposit match up to $100. There's always action on Prize Picks, and this is the perfect time to try out something new as basketball is sort of winding down. So make sure to try out esports this month, for example, because every Wednesday and Saturday in June, if your lineup doesn't win, you'll get your entry fee back. Choose from Counter-Strike 2, Call of Duty, League of Legends, and more. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy at Prize Picks. One guy that stood out in a good way was edge rusher Nick Bonito. And let me just tell you, when it comes to non-padded practices, it's very difficult for guys who live in the trenches to make a name for themselves when it's essentially 7-on-7 cardio flag football out there. But Nick Bonito had a really good day on Tuesday. He's had a really good spring altogether. He comes off a really strong second season, 23 tackles, 13 tackles for loss, 8 sacks. And I think Bonito is definitely in for a really big third season, or at least I hope he is. coming off a really improved year number 2 after more or less redshirting his freshman season. But when you look at Denver's front five, I mean, this has been a topic that we have discussed all offseason long, that the pass rush is going to be a committee approach. Like, I'm not really convinced there is a guy in this group that can go out there and get 10 or more sacks. Bonito can likely push for it along with Baron Browning and probably Jonathan Cooper. But still, I feel like this is a group that's going to have a lot of guys with 6 to 9 sacks, nice, but not a single alpha that's going to have 12 or more sacks or finish top 10 in the league in sacks. So do you think Nick Bonito will lead the Broncos in sacks? Give me a yes or give me a no down in the comment section. He had a really nice day at OTAs, came down with a phantom sack, I guess you can call it, with Zach Wilson, because, of course, you're not allowed to sack the quarterback or even breathe on the quarterback in OTAs. But if you were allowed to, Bonito would have had a sack and a couple of pressures as well. Some injury news and notes I want to get to. Patrick Surtain was working to the side today. Nothing to be alarmed about. Sean Payton told the media that PS2 is healthy and that they are simply just kind of giving him an off day, more or less. That's at least how I interpreted Patrick Surtain working to the side. So no injury scare or news, not like a hamstring injury just popped up. At least that's not what was shared with us today. Ultimately, Payton knows what he has in Surtain, and that's a top 3 cornerback in the NFL. It's June. There's no reason to push some of those superstars this far away from the season. Other guys that were working on the side. Greg Dulcich, feels like it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back when it comes to his injury rehab. Would love to see him back on the field as soon as possible. I know he probably definitely feels the same way. Brandon Jones, the newcomer, he kind of popped up, I guess, with a little bit of an injury. He was working to the side. Caden Stearns and DeLaren Turner-Yell are both coming back from injuries. Newcomer Levi Wallace as well working on the side, along with Reese Taylor. So a couple of names right there, worth mentioning, working to the side, but it's early in June. There's not even a panic level to be had over some of these injuries right now. They're all mostly precautionary measures because it is early June. All right, that will do it for us on today's show. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Always appreciate those of you that watch all the way to the end of the video. So if you don't mind, leave us a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you're still watching right now, go on down to the comment section, type in DEN. It's just a great way for me to know who watches all the way to the end of the video.